enthusiasm, I'm sure. What kind of design went into that? Aloha! You're in for 3 terrific days. I think that's I don't know about a message that I could bring now. Actually, I'm here to kind of trade off what you're doing. Because if we're going to succeed, if the 21st century is going to have a particular meaning for Hawaii and Hawaii's basic values, if our diversity really, in fact, defines us rather than divides us, that's going to have to extend into our intellectual life as well, into our creative life as well. We can't simply reference ourselves with some kind of sense of empathy that is not empathetic in fact. We can't just cite or reference words without putting some kind of meaning behind them, and meaning behind them in very personal terms. In the end, it still comes down to the creative individual being able to make a difference in the world and with himself or herself. I think that's what the design thinking element of this is all about. You can cite the words, empathy, define, ideate, a prototype, feedback, but all that will simply be a rhetorical exercise, an academic convenience, unless and until we really embrace it. And I think that fits in with the whole concept of what the Aloha Spirit is all about. Because if there's anything that is emphasized in this world of division that the Aloha Spirit embodies, it's to be creative about our relationships with one another. When we talk about family, we talk about community, when we talk about a sense of aloha with one another. You could probably take the design thinking elements here and translate them very, very easily into what aloha is all about. Now, for many, this can seem superficial. It can be seen as an exercise in happy talk. It can be seen as another way to avoid actually having to reflect on what it is we're doing, where we're going, why we're going where we are, and what constitutes, in fact, leadership. Leadership, in my estimation, is knowing where you have to be before you have to be there. If you arrive at a situation in which events are riding you, events are in the saddle and riding you, then it's too late. Then the leadership has essentially been abbreviated, has been eliminated. The reason that you're here today, and if you're not here for these reasons, you ought to think about whether you want to go home over the next 3 days. The reason that you're here is you think that you have something to contribute. I don't know if you thought about it exactly that way before you came today. But everyone here is here because whether you reflected on it consciously or not, you think you have something to contribute. Of course, everybody here thinks that they have something to offer. That's not the same thing. To contribute means that you're actually going to be able to exercise whatever creative abilities, whatever capacities you have, not just on your own behalf, but on behalf of the community as a whole. Because none of us exists in isolation. When I ran for office 3 years ago for the office of governor, I thought to myself, in the midst of gridlock, confrontation, and conflict in the Congress of the United States, which has not abated, that it was no longer possible to exercise the design thinking that you're going to experience over the next 3 days. It was no longer possible to exercise whatever creative and experiential judgment that I would be otherwise able to bring to bear in that context. Because instead of having as a mission the betterment of life for the people of the United States in the House, in the people's house, the House of Representatives. The only house, by the way, you must be elected to. People put their faith and their trust in you when you're elected to public office. They freely give to you a sense of faith and trust that you will act on their behalf. The thing that struck me about design thinking as I contemplated coming over here today and tried to figure out what can I say that would possibly be not a motivating force, but justify the fact that I'm taking the time now. And I thought to myself, right here, with this 5-step process, that's something that needs to be done in our political life, in a decision-making life that has to be the fundamental foundation of where we're going if we're going to be a free people. To disdain politics is to disdain the very idea of freedom itself. The polis, the people. To be able to speak with one another in a way that exercises, right from the very beginning, empathy. Empathy is not sympathy, you know. Empathy means a capacity and a desire to reach out to the other person to try to, what is it that will make the connection? If you're going to succeed with design thinking, you have to think in these political terms. People do things for their reasons, not yours. You cannot succeed in politics, you cannot succeed in any project that you want to undertake unless you're able to think not about yourself, but how other people will be thinking of it. Now, it's great if you can come in a political context and you look at the big board and you see all kinds of green numbers going up there. But those green numbers, it'd be terrific if everybody thought the way you did and came to it for the same reasons. But you can't go to someone in politics and say, I want your vote, but only if you think like I do. If you come to the same conclusion I do for reasons different than I have, then I can't accept your vote. That's what empathy is all about. Understanding that other people have different motivations, they have different capacities, different abilities, different experiences that they bring. So these workshops, that's why it's going to take 3 days. This is not easy. It's something you can talk about really, but you're going to have to experience this. You're going to have to go through it. You're going to have to let go a little bit to do it. Now, there's people sitting in here that say this. When I first looked at this, I don't know about this. What am I going to have to do? Is this going to be another touchy-feely session? What are you laughing at? I just see you. Everybody, okay, let the same thought. Come on, raise your hands. No, look at that, no hands. You're off to a bad start. This is a question of, are you going to let yourself go a little bit? You're going to have to immerse yourself in this. You're going to have to give yourself an opportunity. So I mentioned that when I contemplated the fact that I thought I could not make a contribution anymore, in the context, I thought to myself, we have to have a different way of thinking. Perhaps I let myself get immersed as well in macro thinking. That I had allowed the institutional process to overwhelm my creative capacity. More than that, that I allowed it to put me into a corner. To force me into a retreat from myself. That's what the 5 steps here. Once you get the prototype, I thought to myself, I hadn't got to that stage, the prototype. What is the prototype? And I thought to myself, and that's when I defined this, and I put it in an old-fashioned way. I'm a very old-fashioned guy. If I had my way, it would be parchment and quill pens. Okay? I understand. But I thought to myself, so here, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to put it on paper. So I did. And people, Ian among others, one of the first times I explored this was when we had dinner, and then we put it out over the internet, right? We had an internet dinner. I think it was the first one in the country where a candidate for the governorship had an internet dinner. was a very good dinner. Yes, thank you very much. Out at his house, and what we did is of course, we broadcast it all over the state, and people communicated with us. I think 400 or something joined. We had 400 for dinner, right? That's real empathy that was going on. The whole point was, as I was trying to arrive at then, what from prototype to get feedback, and what we came up with was a new day. And maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but this was considerably locked at the time. Oh, it's like a platform of a political party. Nobody pays any attention. It's pro forma. It's superficial. It's surface only. But for those of you who've read it, those that haven't, if you want to understand what motivates me, if you want to understand why I'm here today, why I'm reaching out today, is that I mean it. So I put it down. A new day in Hawaii. If we didn't have a new day in Hawaii, we're sinking. Even right now, I have to argue with people as to whether or not 4-year-olds should have the opportunity to develop when 85% of their entire brain capacity is going to be there by the time they're 5 years old. We have to argue about whether we're going to make an investment in those children who are totally innocent and utterly dependent on the judgment of the adults around them. And we're actually arguing in the 21st century, 2013, as to whether a small child should have the ability and the capacity to be fully enhanced and support that child in his or her opportunity to do the very 5 things that you're going to talk about today. You have to do some fundamental thinking. That's what design thinking is all about. You go through the process here. This is not written just for pro forma. It's here for you to think seriously about whether you want to do these things. And put yourself in that position. Think about it. This is real. It's not abstract that I'm talking about. We do not have an early childhood development and education proposition across the board for every child in the state today. Now, that's the kind of basic thinking that has to be done here. What kind of empathy is that? That we leave 4-year-old children on their own, when everybody knows that by the time you come to the kindergarten class, you're already a year and a half behind. We already know. The superintendent was just here. When we got the so-called late-borns, how would you like to be one of those? One of the late ones, because we know there's developmental differences as little as 90 days to 6 months in small children. These are the kinds of things that you have to take into account. That's why I said a comprehensive plan to invest in education, rebuild our economy, sustain our Hawaii for future generations, and to restore public confidence. The final note that I want to leave with you is that restoration of public confidence is the key element, not just in Hawaii, but across the nation, right now. We are a demoralized society. We are not confident of ourselves in the future. Among most of the young people that are here today, on the polling that's done today, for the first time in generations, people feel they will not do as well as their parents, or they will fall behind. They're not confident that we're going to be able to move forward. That's why the design thinking, I don't mean to speak for those who put it all together. Obviously, you're going to get the history of that as you go along here over the next 3 days. But that's why it came into effect. That's what Oceanet and others do right now. What they're trying to do is take a capacity technologically that we have now and not focus on the technology. We let the technology be a catalyst, be a pass-through for the creative juices and powers that we have. So I think it's terrific that you're here. I think you're going to have a fabulous time over the next 3 days. And I think Hawaii is going to be all the better for it as a result. Thank you very, very much indeed.